Hey yo, Big Tim here. So we've been talking about a Carolina rig a lot lately. So I thought I'd give you a little idea of how I set up for a Carolina rig. So as always, I'm old school. I really don't have anything new as far as rods and reels. So my Carolina reel is an old Bass Pro Shop baitcaster. It's a 6:4 to 1 gear ratio. Really seems to work well on torquing in the big fish. My rod is an old All Star. I actually bought this at the Bassmaster Classic about 2008 or 9. Maybe 10. I don't remember. It's the one Van Dam one in the back of Beeswax Creek. But anyway, I was able to buy these for $33 a piece. They're awesome rods for a Carolina rig. They got a nice soft tip that allows you to launch that bait real well, but it's sturdy enough to handle big fish. So the line that I use on my main line is a 20-pound Seaguar Red Label. Okay, I like 20-pound because I want to be able to have some abrasion resistance against all the shell beds and everything else that you're going to be dragging the sinker through. So as far as the sinker goes, I generally have a 3/4 ounce lead weight. And what I like to do is I pair that up with a swivel. I'm not real particular about the swivels, okay, but I want to make sure that the eyes are big enough that it doesn't slide into the sinker or rattlers. So what I got is the egg sinker, 3/4 ounce. Now I use a 3/4 ounce if I'm 20 to 25 feet. If I wanted to go any deeper, I would go heavier to an ounce. And if I was generally fishing, 6-foot ledges or something, I might go with a 1/2 ounce. But for most of the time, I'm using a 3/4 ounce. This is a tungsten bead that makes a nice little rattle. And this is a brass, I think it's called a clacker. At least that's what I've called them. Okay. So that's the setup right at the sinker. Okay. Then you've got the swivel. Pretty decent sized swivel because, again, you don't want see how the swivel will not go into the holes of the clacker. So then for my swivel, I tie on 15-pound fluorocarbon. And this is Red Label. And I generally have about 3 feet. Okay? Until we get to the business end, the hook. This hook right here is a big hook because I use this for the big brush hog. I generally keep 2 Carolina rigs set up at most time. One has a full-size brush hog, and then the other one has the baby brush hog. And occasionally, if the bite's really working well and we're around some big fish, another reason I have this giant hook on. This is, I think, is a 6/0 trocar. But when the bite's really good, I'll put a 10-inch worm or a 12-inch worm. But you got to know that you're around some bigger fish to do that. But I always, like I said, I always have the 2 to find out what they want. And I've noticed that, earlier in the mornings, particularly on bluebird days, any kind that's fairly dark, green pumpkin bait works best. Sometimes they'll like it with a little chartreuse dye on the tail. Sometimes not. It's just something you'll have to play with. This past trip at Kentucky Lake, not that we caught many fish, but I couldn't get bit without having chartreuse dye on the tail. So that's green pumpkin. And then a lot of times, if the sun comes up, they'll stop eating green pumpkin, and you can switch over to watermelon, watermelon red, watermelon violet, some variation of watermelon candy, and they'll start eating it. And again, may or may not dye the tips of the tails. Another one that I was using down at Kentucky Lake, and I started thinking it was going to be the secret, was a pumpkin colored brush hog and baby brush hog. When I tied those on, I was immediately getting bit. I caught 3 or 4 short fish, and I think I did catch 1 keeper on pumpkin, and then it died. So generally we do real well on a Carolina rig at Kentucky Lake this time of year, but you can use this anywhere. I've actually caught fish on the river using a Carolina rig. I'll shorten up my leader on the river. Generally, the longer the leader, the deeper the water. That's a good tip for you. Down at the river, when I was throwing a Carolina rig, I think I had about a 1.5 foot leader, and was dragging around on some mussel beds or shell beds down there. Going back to the line, I know I said I had a 20-pound main line and 15-pound leader. The reason you want a lighter leader is if you do get hung up, you'd just rather break just this hook off than all of this stuff right here. Not that it's costly, but man, what a pain in the butt it is to have to tie it all. Okay, so you'll save time if you have heavier line on your main line and then a lighter line on your leader. Now, there are times where I'll even drop down to like 15-pound main line and 12-pound leader, but that's kind of rare. For most purposes, this gets you by. So I hope that's helpful for you. And throw a Carolina rig anytime the fish get deep. You know, you can catch some plenty of fish on points, shell beds, anything, 6 to 30 feet deep. You can generally catch them on a Carolina rig. I've not been one to throw them in the summertime or in the wintertime, but some guys do. And that's something I probably need to get more into. And you can play around with the bait. Like I said, I like a brush hog. There's other guys that really like a lizard. Lizard also works well. And like I said earlier, big worms. But Carolina rig can really catch a lot of fish out deep when maybe something else isn't catching them well. So give it a whirl. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.